um, 4 weeks before the conference, the parent of one of a 2-year-old child did not feed the child and was playing game for 24 hours. After that, the child actually went into starvation and almost died after 3 days. So that is the kind of addiction that when you talk about games, people get very addicted. But from my perspective, anything can always be used as a double-edged sword. Okay, you can use it for good or you can use it for bad. So every time you talk about games, it's addiction. But if you think about the other way around, how do you make use of games to actually for the better improvement of learning and also for improvement of life? All right. So then, how do you make use of the games and apply it in education or apply in healthcare? So that is the tricky part, because once you start applying the same game, the teachers applying it, it becomes boring. So how do you change that? So some people will come to me and say, oh, it's the game designer, or it is the game graphic designer. So make the game more fun, more cute, people will accept it better. Is that true? And what about the concept of the design of the game itself? All right? So you must make it engaging, okay? So this is what we are trying to do. How do you make games interesting and combine it together with education? Okay, so we use the element of games. In any game, they are the basic elements when you introduce a game. We like the concept of winning, okay? So even if an educational game, there must be a concept of winning. There is a chance of something that you are going to win, okay? Even in education, when you try to apply to training, to education, the participants must have the ability to think about, I can win, okay? The other thing that you want to think about is completing a task. When you play a game, you have different levels, right? From the simple level, you finish that level, then you can progress to the next level. So in the same way, educational games must also be one that you can complete a task, that you start with something simple and then you move forward, okay? Games, just like any other games, you have the ability to collaborate, meaning your MMOG games, multimedia games, you have this ability to socially interact with other players. In the same way, educational games can and should also be socially interactive, meaning you can work with your classmates, you can work with fellow players in able to achieve certain educational objectives. There must always be the ability to explore. So even in an educational game, there must be something that they are exploring in their world that they are new to. So something that is ability to let them search around and build something in the virtual world. Very much like the normal entertainment games that you play. So even in educational game, it must be something that will attract them to explore the world that they are in. Very important is the ability to collect badges, okay? Collect credits. So even in the games that we develop, we always wanted them to be able to collect a lot of what you call incentive or credits to themselves. And there's always the element of problem solving. So that works together with the different levels of the tasks that you set for them, okay? So then you go on to the fact that even in educational games, you actually put in role-playing characters. You are assuming a certain role and you play out the role inside the educational game. Most important of all, there must always be the element of surprise. In general entertainment games, you are always having that surprise element, because once you achieve your task, you want to know what is the next level you're going for. So in educational games, it's the same thing. Right. So Now I jump straight into the game that I was talking about that we developed for actually the kids that is from 14 to 17 years old. This is a game called Aqua Republica. I will just stop here for a while and let you watch a video. Just a quick introduction on the game that we developed.
If there is magic on this planet, it's said to be contained in water. Water on Earth is constant. There is never a drop more and never a drop less. UNEP, DHI and partners with many years of helping others manage water, based on sophisticated scientific software, presents a serious game about balancing development, water resources and the environment. Aqua Republica. Can you steer a small community to prosperity by strategic use of water resources, or will you squander it away, forsaking future generations? Will you work with nature? Can you harness its power whilst protecting it? Or will you exploit it for fleeting wealth and control? How would you resolve conflicts of interests, both internal and external? Gain insight into ecosystem services to society. Become proficient in making sustainable water resource decisions. Experience strategic planning and learn to coordinate developments with others. Will you build a society that can stand the test of time? Then join Aqua Republica.
Okay, that was the game that we developed called Aqua Republica. It was developed under the UNEP program. The total cost of the game is $280,000 US. Okay, it was a grant from UNEP. The basic idea was to actually use it as a training tool for adults in the water management industry. Okay, so what happened? After the game was developed, they tried to implement it and they tried to use it to educate, or at least they tried to sell it to water companies, and they were not very successful in the beginning. So what we did was, we actually came out with the idea that when the organizers first came out with the game, they approached the Hydroinformatics Society in Singapore. It's actually a water society, and it was part of the National University of Singapore. The professor then came to me and he said that could this actually be used in the Serious Game Association? So what I did was, I said, why don't we take the game and use it as a competition for students between 14 to 17 years old, and run it in conjunction with my Serious Games conference, which I was running at that time. From that day onwards, we then call it the Eco Challenge, and we organized it for the first time in 2013. And then this year, we just completed the competition, 2014, and we are going to do it again next year in 2015. This is what happened. In 2013, when we first organized it, there were only 33 teams. Okay? We didn't do much marketing about it. 33 teams from 3 countries, Thailand, Singapore, and Hong Kong. There were actually 20 teams from Thailand. Okay? There were only 3 teams in Singapore, and the rest was from Hong Kong. I almost gave up. I told after the first competition is over, we said, hey, forget about it. You know, it's not going to work. I don't think I want to do this again. It was a lot of effort. And all the 3 winning teams for the first year was from Thailand, from Chiang Mai. So we gave away the prize money, and then one of the teachers came to me and said, look, Ivan, don't give up. The game is very useful. Learn from it, all right? So try it again. So second year, that is this year. Sometime end of last year, the teacher came to tell me, please try again. So I said, okay, I'll give it one more shot. Next thing I know, UNESCO called me up and they said, why don't we support you and we'll try to get as many teams to play as possible, okay? So UNESCO Hong Kong came to me and they said, we try it. Next thing I know, I have UNESCO Bangkok calling me and said, this is a worthwhile game, they would like to support it. So I said, fine, let's try it for the second year. And we had 420 teams signing up. That became scary, okay? We actually could go higher than 420 teams. Why? What happened? Now, to you, it's a very simple game. The front part of the game is what you saw earlier on. I will go into details. But behind the game, we needed, just for 250 people to play the game, we needed 72 servers running concurrently to run this game. Why? Because what you didn't understand was, in front was a game, but behind was a database. We took the game, which is actually a piece of land in Bangladesh. We took 50 years of record from rainfall, land soil, population growth, everything that the geographical expert was doing was capturing all this information for the last 50 years. We put it into the database called Mike Basin to run the back-end database. So whatever decision you make in front as a player will actually be calculated by the computer, and the result that comes out is an actual forecasted event from the computer. So we needed 72 servers to run the numerical calculation whenever somebody makes a decision in the front, okay? So the game is a very simple game. It's just a piece of land, and you wanted to build a city, very much like SimCity. But the concept behind the game is that this is real, okay? In SimCity, if you want to destroy a building, you can do it very easily. Take it away and throw it out, okay? But in this game, you can't. Every action has a consequence. If you build a piece of farmland on a piece of land, what the student or players did not understand is that even in that piece of land, certain pieces of the squares are more fertile than other places. So if you choose the right square to build a farm, then your points will go up faster. If you choose a land that is not so good and you use it for farming, the theoretical knowledge is that you shouldn't be choosing a piece of land that's sloping to build your farm, because it is harder to grow the crops. Now, if the piece of land is flat, it is irrigated by water, then the plants will grow easier. So these are the concepts that actually go into the game. And the decisions that the players play will actually be affected by the conditions of the land, of the rainfall, and everything else, all right? So that is the beauty of the game. Now, every game, you have only 12 rounds to play, okay? 12 rounds. You can make decisions, 12 decisions, and you finish one game, and you get a total score. The whole idea is that you can play as many games as you want in a 4-hour period, okay? So we wanted the players to have the experience of making mistakes, repeating the mistakes, thinking why did they choose a certain decision, and then moving on. Now, if you think about it, every decision that you make has a consequences. So the possibilities are thousands and thousands of possibilities. If you decide that this piece of land, I'm going to grow my farm, this piece of land, I'm going to grow my factory, and then you try the different combination, okay? And that is the end result where you have your total score, and that is what we wanted the players to understand as they play. Now, because because of that, the game became very realistic, and when I first introduced it to UNESCO, they loved the whole idea, and so they joined us, and they were very, very supportive. Then later on, I introduced it to WWF, the World Life Fund, and they were also very excited by the whole thing. So, what happened? We finished the second competition. Next year, we are looking at the third competition, and I just had a conference call with UNESCO Paris, and they are very, very interested to have the game as a global challenge. We are not so interested because in order to have thousands of people playing, it will cost us a lot of money just to run the backend server. So just to give you a rough idea, to have 72 servers running at the back, it costs us $9,000 a day to rent it from Amazon. Okay, so what happens? Second year when we ran it, 420 teams, the top player who almost won the game was a game from Thailand, but at the last minute, somebody from Hong Kong beat him, and he was really sore about the whole idea. But for the winner, we actually flew them all the way to South Korea to get their prize. So their prize is not just the money, but they actually get a free ticket to go to South Korea to have a day out. Okay, why are we doing this? In fact, when we do this, this is actually not my main job, so we do this out of interest. I don't get paid for doing this. So the reason why we wanted to do this is because if you think about it, 82% of the world actually have to constantly change their water policy. You know, even for Bangkok, it is a very serious problem because of the flooding every year. Okay, so, but the scary thing is this. Only 35% understand the water policies and water management. Okay, so actually, water management, water topics is very important to everybody. So what we wanted to do is not to just go out and make a noise and say change the idea of the politician, but instead we are thinking we should start from the student. Okay, get the general people to get interested, and then they can slowly grow from there. So that was the whole idea and the motivation behind why we are doing this. Okay, there's a science behind the game. The whole idea of the game is that you must allow the players to actually make mistakes. The whole idea is really to make mistakes. Now, in our day-to-day life, you realize that you are actually learning things when you only have the opportunity to make mistakes. So, if that is something that you have been doing, we wanted to inculcate that into our students. We are not telling them that they can't make mistakes, but they have to learn from their mistakes. So the whole thing about the game is that we keep asking them to try the different options so that they learn from what they have decided on the last action, and then they can actually try out something new. Okay? So that's the good thing about the game. Now, a lot of time when we develop a game, I don't know how to put it this way. If I am saying something wrong to the game developers, please forgive me. A lot of time I find that when somebody wants to develop a game, they will go to a game developer, and the game developer will base on their own knowledge and their own concept to develop the game. But you are not the expert in the subject. So a lot of time, there must be a lot of collaboration between the topic expert and the game developer. All right? Sometimes what you think is correct or what you did as homework may not be exactly accurate. So it is always good to check with a topic expert. So in this game, the game was actually developed by a company called DHI. DHI is actually a water management company. It's very much like the water management government in Thailand, or in Singapore is the Public Utility Board. They are the people who actually develop the game using the concept. They understand what they want. Okay? The developer is the one that will tell the expert how you should put the game together. Because in gaming, as a developer, you know how long you can play a game at a certain stage. You know how to make the game engaging. Okay? Meaning how to make the characters fun, how to make the characters cute so that people will want to play. You also know how to attract the players to want to continue playing the next level. Okay? But the content expert must come from the experts who are actually developing the content per se. So they are more into the water management people. Okay? Now, a lot of time in educational game, the teachers are the one who come to the developers. Now, again, the teacher may be teaching a certain topic. They are very focused on the topic per se, okay? But they may not be the expert in that topic. So sometimes that is the missing link that is there, okay? The teachers are actually good in teaching, okay? They know a certain topic, but the topic may be good to have somebody who are expert in the content or in the content to come in to give advice or to give you the scope where it should be covered. So there is the content expert, there is the teachers who deliver the content, and there is the game developer who develop the game. So in game development, if you want to use it in simulation, in real life scenario, you actually need a combination of people to come together. All right? So in today, our biggest problem is that we are not talking to each other. The developers are not talking to the content expert, and the content experts are not talking to the teachers. So sometimes a lot of the projects get, cut off after a certain time because of failure, because of time constraint. Okay? So there is a science that we use in the Aqua Republica. We actually use the ecosystem approach to integrated water resource management. This is actually the general guideline that we use when we go and develop the game. Okay, so from the game, we realize that from river basin, we talk about physical and social science, meaning the geography of it, but there is also the human interaction. Okay, so from the game, you can actually see how they actually interact with each other, because whatever decision you make in the population, it does affect the water supply that you need for the population. Whatever you build as factory, water is used for both human consumption and also for agriculture usage and also for industry. So all of this has consequences to each other. Okay, it's getting a bit noisy. I'm just going to play the video. Okay, this is the second version of the game. After our success on the first one, we decided to actually make more variation to the game. So you can actually see the idea of what we are trying to do. We actually developed different levels of difficulty for the game. Okay. At the beginning, we actually explained the game to them. and then they can start the mission from there. So this is when the database behind starts to run for the game. Okay, this is a piece of land that we developed, and we actually have news interjected inside to let them know what is their mission statement. All right. We also explain that what is upstream will affect downstream, and I find that very interesting for the Mekong Basin, because what is happening upstream will actually affect what is downstream, which is in Thailand. So what is happening in Vietnam, what is happening in Laos will actually affect what is happening downstream. If you just imagine how directly it can impact you. So at each plot of land, you can build either your power station, you can build a farm, you have ability to build the structures that is in real life. Now, everything comes back to money, right? If you want to build a farm, you need money, okay? And the different thing has different value to it. The interesting thing is that you cannot immediately build a city. You always have to start with a village. So the concept is simple. You always start from basic, and from the basic, you actually grow bigger. All right? Now, we have the ability to now put in policy making, meaning even policy makers could make a decision and it does affect the population and also the building structure. The different kind of wheat or plant or cotton that you grow will also yield different results and also different monetary gain. So like I said, throughout the entire game, you can only make 12 decisions. One decision is almost 15 years, if I'm not, 5 years or 6 years, I can't remember. But it will play out the entire duration of the population year. Okay? Okay. So as I explained, the game cannot be developed just with the content itself. It is actually the game developer who comes in and actually set the defined area of the game, the rules of the game and the struggle. Now, this is all set up by the the game developer. In fact, when I tried to develop my own game a few years ago, one of the difficulties I faced is trying to understand the language of the developer. Okay, if you are an outsider, one of the problems I face is when the developer comes to me, he will say, "Do you want to develop your game in 2D, in 3D? What kind of characters you want? What kind of platform you want to build it on?" Those are very confusing for a non-developer. So a lot of time the developer has to be able to explain your language in a layman term, so for the content expert to be able to share what you are trying to achieve. Okay, but you play a very important role in terms of setting the parameters for the game. Now, this is just going through what you saw in the video just now. The game itself, basically it's a web-based game. We allow people to just log in, and you are supposed to build the population, the land itself. Okay, so if the population is growing, your water supply will actually decrease, and the amount of money you use to build your farmland will also decrease, and you have to build things that can earn you money. So this is the whole concept of what the game is all about. Okay? And we actually interject the games with a lot of, we can actually interject the games with actually policy making that will affect the decisions that you make. Okay? Right. So like you see here, we always start with building the basic, which is the village, followed by the city and then the metropolis. So in every decision that you make, you always start from the basic. So that reflects how real the game actually take into consideration. Okay, it goes also with the power station. Even the power station, we have different levels of the power station that you build. And basically, we could also mine for coal. We can have biofuel. So the game itself can actually change depending on the scenario that you want to replicate. So sometimes the piece of land can actually be customized to reflect not a modern city, but actually a rural part of a certain city. Okay? I'm just going to run through this very quickly. Yep. So, at the end of the game, what the players will see is actually the total score. Where you can see here, the total score that they actually built, okay, after 12 rounds. So what we did with the competition is that you can play as many games as you want throughout the 12 cycle period, and the one with the highest score will be the winner. Naturally, we have the leaderboard, so everybody will know who is actually leading in the game, and that makes it a little bit more exciting. Okay? Now, like I said earlier, the game takes into a lot of consideration of social, political, economic, and natural environment. It affects each other. So, when we wanted to teach the players how does it affect each other, these four factors are taken into consideration when we talk to them. Okay. Now, one of the things we learn when we implement the game or the competition amongst the teachers is, surprisingly, this is what happens. The teachers were the first people who say no to using the games. Okay? Very simple. The questions that came from the teachers are very straightforward and very sincere. It is the same whether it's in Thailand, it's in Singapore, or it's in Hong Kong. The teachers came to us and said, look, I am not so good with computer, okay? You know, if you want to have the competition, I don't know how to switch on the thing for the children to play. I need my IT department to come in. So I said, look, get your IT department. The game is on Unity platform. It's very easy to download. Takes 2 minutes and you can download on any computer, whether it's Android or iOS. Then the second question the teacher came to me is, I never play games. So when my students ask me, how do I answer them? Okay? So the important thing is this. Our answer to the teacher is, you are not supposed to give the answer. Okay? You are not supposed to tell the children how to play. Okay? In fact, when we implemented the competition, the interesting thing is this. The teachers were the one with more questions than the students. Okay? The students or the players who are playing in the game have no questions at all. Okay? Some of the teachers, for example, from Japan, from Korea, the first thing they ask me is, Ivan, the game is in English. Okay? My students cannot understand English, so they will not win the game. Okay? That was exactly the first thing that Chiang Mai teacher told me. Okay, the game is in English, we are not so good. Can you change it to Thai so that they can win? Okay, But interestingly, the people who won, as I said, the first year was all Thai students. And we didn't change the game to Thai. It was all in English. Why? Because the students are very intuitive. They know where to play the game, they know what to do, they don't need the teachers at all. Okay? What they need the teachers is the concept. Okay? The concept of if I build a bigger population, I have less water. The concept of I build a piece of village, a city, I need money. Okay? So these are the concepts that students don't have or may not be so strong in, and they need the teachers for the help. Not so much the technology or how to play the game. Okay? So the first part was always the teacher. Okay? The second part was also the teacher. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to teach the teacher, to tell the teacher, look, in order for you to have the kids enjoy the game, you yourself must be excited about the game. Okay? If you are excited, the children will also have the same excitement from you. Okay? They can tell. If the teachers are not excited, the students will not be excited. But when the teachers are excited, the students are all ready to play and ready to challenge each other. And this is the interesting thing. When we first started in year one, the students were just playing for themselves. Okay? We formed teams and we want to challenge each other. The second year, the students was not playing for themselves, they were playing for the schools they represent. So the second year we have all the schools, the secondary schools around Chiang Mai University. Chiang Mai University hosted the game, but they invited all the secondary schools around Chiang Mai to participate. So the students came and they were representing their school. So they want to beat the other team from another school. Okay? Then we started showing results of the game from Hong Kong and from Singapore. Next thing I know, I get phone calls during the competition and they say, are the Singapore team cheating? Are the Hong Kong team cheating? You know, they can't beat the score, and then they said, you know, did you give extra hint to other people? So they then started to be representing the country. They are now saying, I'm playing for Thailand. I want to beat Hong Kong. I want to beat Singapore. The same thing came from the students from Singapore and from Hong Kong. Everybody wanted to play and to beat each other. So the competition make them want to play and challenge each other. So once that happens, we realized that when the teachers get excited, there were more students participating, and when one of the student team scored the highest point, both the students and the teacher were jumping up and down saying, yeah, we did it, you know. So it's the excitement that you need to build up. This is the part, you know, where I told the teacher said, look, Ivan, you must come down and give me 1 hour lesson on how to play the game. Because when the students start asking me questions, I don't want to look embarrassed. So I told the teacher, don't stay in the room, get out of the room, okay? Let the students play themselves. They will learn from the game, and then when they need to answer some questions, they will then come to you to ask the concept. So you don't need to feel so worried. So in a way, we told the teacher, don't give advice. In fact, if you don't want to, get out of the room. Let the students play on their own, okay? When we trial the competition, we always have 2 persons in a team. Why? The reason is because we wanted collaboration. We wanted them to talk. Yes, games should not be something that we want them to play one amongst themselves with the competition, with the computer. We wanted them to talk. We wanted them to make group decision. Okay? When you have a second person, making a decision is a little bit tricky. Okay? You have one opinion, the other person have another opinion. You will sometimes start to argue. Constructive arguing is good. Okay? So we wanted that to happen, and that really happened during the competition. So you will start to see the interaction is carried to real life when they grow up, because they need to argue with each other to see each other's point of view. Okay? So always 2 or more inside a team. Okay. This is something that is important in serious games, and this is where when parents ask us, where do you see the learning in games? Okay? When you play the game, it is very hard to say there is learning in a game. What we did with the competition is very simple. We divided the 4 hours into, you play for 1 hour, we don't disturb you. We break for half an hour for a think tank session. Okay? Then we go back to play another hour, and we stop again for 15 minutes, what we call consult the expert session. Then we go back and complete the last hour. Why do we do that? In serious game, this is what we call the debriefing session. The debriefing session is very important because this is the time when you will see the students or the players learn the most. When we stop them for half an hour for the think tank session, we mix the groups of students up. We wanted to see whether the students are actually learning and wants to collaborate with each other. They can choose to want to share or they can choose not to share. Okay? Because in the game, if you are trying all the different options, the initial score is always 1,000. Then, if you start to learn certain strategies, certain tricks, you jump to 10,000. The highest score this year was 1 million. In fact, what happened is that we found that when the students start sharing with each other, they immediately jump from 1,000 to 10,000 very fast. That is the whole concept of collaboration. Are you willing to share strategies with each other? Okay? Are you willing to go out and ask somebody else what strategy did they use? Okay? But on the flip side, okay, there are students who come back to the teacher and say, I share, but I lost. Okay? So the teacher have to try to explain to the student that sometimes, yes, you share, but from the sharing, you yourself should also try to improve more. So there is a lot of emotional issues that the students or the players go through, and that is the part where the teachers step in. Okay? So the think tank session was good. That is the part when we did a survey, all the students were telling us they learned the most during the think tank session because they start to see how other people think, why do they think that way. Okay? And this is ultimately what I told the teacher. The role of the teacher is changing, and it's changing very fast in today's society. Okay? The teacher is not as good as the Google. Okay? If you want an answer, go to Google. If you just type any question, Google will give you the answer. So I told the teacher, why do you want to be the one giving all the answers? You are not. Okay? In fact, you are the facilitator. Okay? There is a lot of answer out there. The question is, the students or the players have to decide what is the real answer, what is the answer that, replicate the real solution. So a lot of time, it is the teacher who plays a role of a facilitator. Okay? And they must feel comfortable playing that role. So they are actually guiding their students through that role in terms of how they feel and what is some of the information they get. Okay? So most of the teachers that came back to me after the competition, they were all very happy because what they found out is that when after the game, it is not what they learned in the game or during the game. A lot of the students were motivated enough to, after the game, they were still asking the teachers questions about some of the concepts in the game. And that proves the success of the game. Because what you want is really to get the students curious enough that they will want to learn the concept further on their own. Okay? So this is what we call self-directed learning. And then after that, going back to the teachers to reaffirm the information. All right? So this is what we hope the game can achieve, which is really to get the students the interest, the passion to say, I want to learn more. Okay? All right. So this is not my slide. This is a slide that came from a teacher in Singapore. She came to me and she said, "Look, Ivan, you can share this with anybody else because this is what they learn in school." The students actually have concrete experience. Students learn from specific experience within the game to make a sense of themselves. Okay. They reflect on some of the things that they did in the game. Okay, when they share with each other, they reflect, and they started to ask, how come when I do this, I end up like that? Okay, how come when he did this, it ended up like this? Okay, I have actually some students keep writing to me, asking me, did the system do a wrong decision because I make this and nothing happened? This is after the competition. They still ask because they are very interested how come they lost and whether the game was not totally correct. So anyway, they understand abstract concept during the game, and then they will clarify this with the teacher. And because of the trial and error, there is a sense of experimentation. They can keep trying and find out the different results. Okay? Now, at the end of the day, this is what the teacher wanted them to learn. Success in the game does not equate to success in meeting learning objective. A lot of time, when a lot of teachers, they set a lot of goals for their teaching, they have certain learning objectives, okay? Playing the game may not achieve some of these objectives. What is more important is trying to achieve the curiosity in the students, which eventually will lead to your learning objectives. That is what we are trying to tell the teachers. And only in a game are you allowed to try and fail, okay? And when you go into real life, sometimes you don't have the opportunity to try and fail, okay? Okay, so we did a survey. 80% of the students would like to play the game again, particularly those who lost. 90% of the teachers would like to repeat the game. We tried with Australia this year. The whole of Australia, all the schools tried, and they were very responsive. So for next year, we're going to target 2,000 teams. And this is what is going to happen. I have already committed 8 different countries to organize national competition. In Thailand, there's one going to be in the north, hosted by Chiang Mai University. In Central, we are still talking to either Thammasat University, who is going to host it, or Bangkok University, we are not sure. But the entire organization will be coordinated by UNESCO Bangkok. We have also Korea coming in. We have also Japan. We have already Indonesia, Philippines. Quite a lot of the Asian countries are all involved. So China is the new member who has just come in. We are getting a little bit worried because this time China has 1,200 schools who want to participate. So the sheer number is a bit scary for us at this point of time. Another thing that has happened recently was that the World Water Forum has interest in our game, and for all the winners from the different country, we would actually fly them all the way to Korea to participate the international competition at the World Water Forum. Now, the World Water Forum is a conference with 300,000 people. All the ministers of the world will be attending, and we are actually going to hold the international competition at the World Water Forum. All right? So we wanted to get more of the general population to also participate in this challenge next year. Okay, what's so good about the competition? Now we are actually entering into a second phase where there is a potential of research. When the students are playing the game, a lot of the decisions that they make during the game we would want or we will be collecting data. Every decision made before the briefing, after the briefing, and also what sort of decision did they make is something that we are very interested in. Okay, so this will give us a trend of what the students are thinking in a particular country, across different countries, and we can see what is the mindset, whether they are more prone towards collaboration or actually they are not so much into collaborating but more independent. So this is the kind of research, and we are working with the Curtin University and also Chiang Mai University to develop the research projects. So at this point of time, this is something that the game can tell us, because each decision they make can be recorded in the system. So we will take that and compare across the different countries. From the game itself, we are actually developing a summer camp. And what is more interesting is, third point, from a simple competition, the National Security Council in Singapore has actually approached us to tweak the game a little bit to cover food security, water security, population security, and they would like to use that on adults. Okay? Adults could also play the game and understand how does food security, water security affect them from the adult point of view. And for the adults, we are actually splitting them up into 5 a team, and they collaborate and make decisions during the game, and we play it like the way the competition is being played with the students. Then we could also understand from the adult point of view how and what is their concept when they were collaborating with each other, what is the trend and the things that they decide on. Okay, so these are the things that we actually develop into. Okay, so there are many serious games examples in the world. Remission is one of them. If you know Remission, Remission is a game that is used to let cancer kids with cancer play, because a lot of time when you are a child taking medicine for chemotherapy is very difficult and very painful. So in order to get them to take the medicine and understand it, they actually develop a game called Remission. Okay, when the kids play Remission, they are killing all the bad viruses with help from the good viruses. So when they found out that after research done on it, they found out that the kids actually kill and they feel that by them taking the medicine, it's like them playing in the game, they are killing the bad viruses. So more of the kids are more open to it. Okay, now the interesting thing is this: Remission is developed by a company called Hope Lab, and it is based in the Dutch Netherlands. But the designer or the graphic designer of the game is a Thai company in Bangkok. Okay, so Remission is one of those that you can see it's a very good serious game that you use. So there are others like Dufol is dying, and there's also simulators that we use in serious game. Now I'll take a little bit of the time to explain what is Tego. Okay, now in serious game, we have already developed to a stage where we are looking at games in the healthcare sector. Okay, there is a lot of rehab games or mental games, anger management games that is already developed in universities all over the world, including in Thailand. Chula University, Thammasat University, there are a lot of this being used, and they are using Kinect, Microsoft Kinect, for this kind of rehab games. Now, what is happening is that we are actually building a platform in Singapore together with Microsoft. Okay, this platform, we are trying to invite all the different university labs to let us host their game on the platform, and then using Microsoft Live to redistribute the game out. Okay, very simple concept. Build a platform, you put your game inside, and then if you want, we will sell it. Every game we want to distribute at the lowest possible price so that the players who are using it are the players who can benefit from rehab exercises. So the whole idea is that using Kinect, we have a platform, and the senior citizens could actually, once we set up the box inside the community centers, elder care centers, hospitals, they can actually use it to interact with the games inside the platform. Okay? The initial package is always free, and then they can choose the different games. But what we hope to achieve from there is actually getting the medical doctors to get on board. They will be the one curating the game and telling you which one is good and which one is bad. They will be the one who are from the rehab specialists who will actually share some of the opinions with the people who are using the game. All right? So eventually, this is what we hope Tegel will become. We wanted the doctors to be the one working with game developers to actually develop games that is good enough to be used, whether is it for patients or people who are not into the patient category. Okay? What is missing in our society today is that a lot of the time the government have information to only patient record. You can make public policies based on that, but what is more important to government or any government is that do you have the record of the general population, and can you tell or predict a trend of how many of them would need to go into critical care, or they are not in critical care but they are actually healthy. So this is the information we want to collect using this kind of platform and this kind of games. And it is very possible because from Kinect, there is a research study that is actually able to see how you move to tell whether your bones are already fragile. And that is already a research that is almost completed. Based on the movement from Kinect, you can actually tell whether that person has a higher propensity to go into osteoporosis. Okay? So what we are saying is that the Kinect is actually a very powerful data collector. So using the information, you can actually be able to repackage it for government policy holders to make decisions. You know, insurance companies to make decisions on what is the trend of the future of the general population. So that we hope then could encourage more collaboration between the game developers and the doctors. Okay? Already in education, we are trying to get the university researchers to work with the developer to produce the content. But in the healthcare, we are trying to get the doctors to work with the game developers to produce games that we can actually collect a lot of this data. Okay? So this is what Tegel is all about. Okay? Well, that's the end of the presentation. We are doing the Serious Games Conference in Singapore next year in July. Well, if you are interested, by all means, join us. Our focus is on education and healthcare. Okay? Any questions?
Thank you very much. I once developed the game that has the same concept that save the nature, that save the power of the world. And the problem that I have that if you create your city, you cannot balance your nature and your city, because if you want your city to have a high qualities, you have to degrade your nature. Do you have the same problem, or what can I solve these problems?
I think that is precisely why we develop games that is realistic. Because if you are building cities, you are taking away the natural resources. You cannot be idealistic to say, I'm building a city, but I'm able to maintain my natural resources. So the good thing about it is that you need to be real, okay? And the game will reflect that. What we are talking about today, at least not directly against government policies, but what we are saying to the government is sustainable development, okay? If the players understand what is sustainable development, then certain policies will change, right? If they, for example, not so much in Thailand, but more in Indonesia, if the children understands that, you know, the logging that's happening in Indonesia is going to affect not just about climate, the logging will affect their water supply, the logging will affect the people who are removed from certain forests, you know. So all of this is educational that eventually the players will come to understand. And that is what we want to teach a lot of our future generation on how do you use a game to first get them interested, and then after that, the content will slowly get them to reflect on what is happening in the real world. So that is the whole idea about realistic. So yeah, I can't tell you to build a game like SimCity and agree with the fact that, you know, you can just destroy what you don't want and then rebuild a new one, and there's no consequences to that kind of development. All right?
มีคำถามอีกไหมคะ เดี๋ยวสักครู่นะคะ เดี๋ยวขอพี่คนนี้ก่อนนะคะ
Did you have a problem when the student or the competitor join your game and start building the same thing that they learn from maybe the former student who in the same school, because they know if they play this pattern they will get a good point. That way is not learning, it just try to beat the game, right?
Okay. Very good question. This one, I see another way around. Okay, I have two students. First year, I told you the Thai team won, right? But the Singapore team, there were two students who scored the highest, okay, but they didn't win. But they wanted to compete in the second year. Why? Because what happened is that they then told me that after the competition, they become something like a guru, a teacher. Because a lot of other of their students, even their junior, came to them and asked them, how did you score? Next year when I compete, I want to know how did you score? So he started sharing with all the junior. And in that sense, if you see it in a social status, he has gone up. Suddenly, a nobody becomes a somebody, and there were a lot of followers or fans, so to speak. So he wanted that status, he enjoyed that status. So other people look at him, they also want to have that status. Yes, you're right. Other people will want to use this strategy and they may not be learning. But the interesting thing is this: every move you make in the game comes out a different result. So unless you can exactly follow the move, sometimes they can't remember. You must understand that there are 12 turns in one game. In 4 hours, you can easily have 50, 60 games. So you cannot remember everything, but you roughly understand what you did or shouldn't do in order to have lower scores. Okay? So we are not so much worried. Even for adults, we are not worried because we just tell the adult. In fact, we open the same game out for them to try for a month before the competition start. Even that, they couldn't get to remember all the moves they make.
The continuing question about if you like, because you say that the teacher will be teaching their student about what the fundamental of how to manage the resource or to use the water for the best way, but that thing is maybe not exactly represent to the player inside the game. What kind of thing to fix this one, right? When you try to put a farm, there will be drain some water and they may get some pollution to the water. So I don't know how the formula for this one, how you make it constant every time the player play, right? If I do this, I will get the very close to the same result. Is it that way or
Okay.
another way?
Interesting. Because you're asking the same question as what the teacher are asking. All teachers have what you call model answer, right? So you're asking for a model answer. But how many times in life you have a model answer? A lot of time in life when you go out, you know, finding a job, doing a job, a lot of time you think that if you do this, you will get promoted. Not true, okay? If you work hard, you will get this. Not true. So this is very much like life, but what we are trying to encourage is not model answer. What we want to encourage is getting the students to come out and share. Remember yesterday you told me that students in Thailand don't like to share. They will not want to come out and, teacher, what is this? You know, they only share on a private basis. But what we are trying to do is we are trying to get them to come out and ask their questions, you know, to get their mind thinking, what happened? How come? Why is it like that? Are we able to do that? If we are already successful in the game, okay? It is not just a Thai mentality, but I think it is an Asian mentality. Whether you go to Korea, you go to Japan, students react in the same way. You come to Singapore, it's the same. You know, only in Western countries like the US, they are more open. Maybe that's why we are losing out to them. Maybe, maybe not. Okay? But what we need to do is to really get the Asian students to come out and ask those questions because they are not any less clever than European or American students. Okay? They are equally smart. Just that they have to come out and they have to share. They have to actually ask the questions. That's what we are trying to do. Okay? So there's no model answer. There is certain answers in the sense that yes, if you consume, if you have one river, okay, if you build a factory, naturally the factory takes up 70% of the water supply and you have 30% for the population, right? If your population grow, your water supply is going to be less. That is a basic, simple concept, multiplication concept, right? You can share that with them. But if you throw in and say, this year is a year of La Nina or El Nino, okay, how is that going to affect it? Things will change, right? So there's no real answer, but the whole idea is that if they can ask you those questions, they are already starting to think. And if they start to think, then that's where you can start discussing. And when you can start discussing with them, more ideas will come out. That is the whole idea of the competition and of learning. Okay? Not for exam.
ถามต่อไหมคะ ถามไปแล้วใช่ไหมคะ มีคำถามอีกไหมคะ ไม่มีแล้วนะคะ Actually he wanna ask you but the same question of him โอเคเชิญค่ะ
So, as I learned from your presentation, you do only the water management game, but I think the most notorious problem in the world is the global warming or climate change. So I ask you if anybody built a game already or thinking about building this kind of game.
At this moment, if I'm not wrong, there are a few universities looking at this climate change. There are one in Australia and one in Netherlands that's looking at it and they're building the game, which is good because then you have more options that's actually coming out. So we are actually constantly monitoring and trying to get them to succeed so that we can share the game around. But the problem right now is that a lot of the game developers are still not talking to the researchers, which needs to build games that has strong foundation in concepts. And so this is what we are. Yeah, it's a growing industry, and this is where we see the value right now. And we do see a lot of value in actually getting the entire region to work together to develop this, right? To be very frank, Thailand has a lot of fantastic designers, developers that can be part of this ecosystem, and you have your own universities actually doing a lot of this research. So it's very important that the entire industry gets involved. And the thing is that there's a lot of data in the European and the American market. If you look at it, there is not much data for Asian. Okay, that is why we keep wanting to do this, to grow the serious games in the Asian region, because we want to collect a lot of the Asian data. Because what is in Asia doesn't mean, what is in Europe and US doesn't mean that it will apply to us in Asia. Okay, so we have to collect our own data in order to find out whether it's in student learning, whether it is in healthcare. I think it's very different.
I just remind the last year I came to the seminar about the game design. Eileen Hoffman, she said something about a simulation game, and what she do is she have a simulation game like SimCity, where the city have the population a problem with the pollution from the coal factory to produce electricity, and they challenge the student to solve the problem by slowly transfer to renewable energy. And what she collect is the data and how the student do the thing like build a small windmill, build a small solar cell, because you cannot just destroy the coal factory and change to solar cell immediately, because the power will lost all the time. So every movement, every single action that student do in the game, she will collect, and she said that there is a good pattern and like a very impossible pattern, that when you do this, the result is very good, and when you do that, the result is moderate. So you also say that you collect the data from the user, right? What you do with the data?
Okay, this one is what we do with the data. The data, that is the reason why we need to get the university involved, because a lot of time we realize, because when I first started the Serious Game Association in Singapore, we have a lot of developers. Developers are in there because the money is good for the entertainment games. But when we start going into games in education, games in healthcare, it's a little bit tougher, because game in education, the money is not there. Schools don't have the money to pay. Healthcare, they have the money to pay, but to get money from healthcare is a long process. And yet, both schools and healthcare are always asking, what can you show me to prove that your game is effective? Okay, that is the data that we are interested in. Okay, how do you collect this data and show that it is effective, and actually analyze it to show what can you do with the data in order to make decisions? Okay, what we wanted to collect in this game is very simple. Now, how do you get the students to, how do you collect the data to show what are the decisions the students are making? For example, are they trying to build more farmland, or are they trying to build more industry? There is a difference between farmland and industry, because then that determines how you're going to sustain your economy. Okay? That also will give you some idea of whether your future generation is thinking of the basic need of food, or are they thinking of the basic need of energy? Okay? So these are trends that you can actually collect from simple games that you are trying to develop. The question is, a lot of the developers today are not even thinking about collecting the data. They are only interested in making the game fun, engaging, which is important. You must make it engaging for them to play. But at the same time, if you're going into the future of gaming, you are actually trying to collect a lot of this data so that it becomes useful data for you to actually make decisions or policies from it. All right. So that is what I'm trying to encourage to say, look at games from a different perspective. I'm not saying that entertainment games, you have been developing games for entertainment, which is good, which is engaging, and you know the concept, psychology behind developing those games. But now think about what else can you use the game data or the game for to collect data. Okay?
ใครมีคำถามอีกไหมคะ
So I will ask you as a developer, in this game, I think that it will have a perfect solution that if you understand the concept of this solution, you earn the maximum score of the game. So if some of the people understand this concept, they will use the same pattern to earn the maximum score. What should you do next?
Agreed. That's why I didn't explain this because what happened is that for next year, we decided to drop the game land for Bangladesh. Next year, the game will be based on Singapore because Singapore is celebrating its 50th birthday next year. So I managed to get some money from the government, and then we're going to remodify the game to a different scenario, taking the data of Singapore in the last 50 years in terms of water management and water supply and put into the game. So next year's competition will be on Singapore. Now, right? So the interesting thing is this. Suddenly, when I practice this, it's not about nationalism. Australia contacted me and say, look, Ivan, how much is it to change your game in 2016 to Australia, a piece of land in Australia? Okay, I said 20,000. The guy said, good, I'll ask for my government 20,000. Next thing I know, I got a call from China. They said, Ivan, I want a piece of land in China to be played for the competition next year. I said, no, you have to wait to 2017. So imagine the whole concept of the different scenarios that is being developed for every country now. And because this game is developed under UNEP, United Nations Environmental Program, the constitution says that they have to provide the game for free. Okay? Simple. They have to provide the game for free. So what I then did was, if this game has so many different scenarios, if all the teachers can use it and teach the different country climates, the different soil, now, how much more can you share? You know, because it is not just about Bangladesh, it's not about Singapore, it's not about China, it's not about, you know, Australia, but everyone has a different scenario. Everyone have different land, soil, climate, rainfall, you know. So you learn. From there, the students get even more excited because they are playing the game, they will want to know that country, they may want to go to that country and see for themselves, you know, what is a full mountain, what is a river basin, you know. Why is there so much problem if you build a dam in China, the Three Gorges Dam, and how does it affect the people all downstream? Okay, all of this will start coming up, you see. So that is the impact that games can bring about and making changes to all these people. All right, I started as a simple competition. Honestly, I didn't expect this, but it has grown to this size, and it's taking up a lot of my time to just coordinate with the different countries. But it's fun.
มีคำถามอีกไหมคะ พี่ถามอีกไหมคะ มีคำถามอีกไหมคะ I think no more question. Could you please leave like a few words or message for all Thai fan for the serious game? So would you like to say something to the Thai fan about for serious game, because so many people and like a Thai youth interesting for this like a conference?
Well, basically the whole idea is that I think you have a lot of talent here in Thailand. It's a question of how do you move to the next level, taking it into education and taking it into healthcare and really be able to change lives for the better. So that is something that game developers can do, you know, and you guys are actually in the forefront just that you have to work with the right people from the universities, people with the right, content, and things can happen. Okay, that's how I started, and that is something that will bring positive effect. So game is not all about addiction. Game is not about bad things. Okay, buying things online. Now, if everybody start collecting all these points because they're saving the earth, I would love it if they all started collecting more of these points, right? So the whole idea is that use the game for good. Yeah, it is possible.
Thank you very much ปรบมือให้กับ Mr. Ivan Boo ด้วยค่ะ Thank you very much Mr. Ivan Boo Serious Game Association from Singapore for your nice presentation